Hello. So today I'm continuing my series of videos on games I own but had not played, and I'm playing them and going through setup and some instructional information and letting you know kind of what I thought about it after one play. So today I'm doing StarCraft, the board game. I actually got this game in a trade probably a little over a year ago. Kind of been wanting it for a while, but since it's been out of print for a long time, the price of it was a little more than I was willing to pay. But somebody actually offered me, a trade for it, and I got a pretty good value for what I traded for it, I thought. So anyway, I've had it on my shelf for about a year, and since I started doing these videos, decided I'd get it out, set it up, play, and make a video. So yeah, you can see some of the components I've got set up here. I'll go through setup in a minute. I just got it kind of laid out here. I've just got laid out for 3 players here. There's actually a lot more. You can play up to 6 players. So let me clear some space here, and I'll go through setup, and then we'll get through a little bit of how to play. Alright, first thing is it just says randomly choose a first player and give that player this first player token. Then starting with the first player, each player will choose a faction. You've got 3 races. You've got the Zerg, the Terrans, and the Protoss. And for each race there's 2 factions. So for instance, for the Zerg, you've got the Queen of Blades here, Overmind here, and I think mainly the difference is the special victory condition. Each faction has its own special victory condition. So after the first player has chosen their faction, then you go in clockwise order with each player choosing the faction they want to play. And once you've chosen your faction, you gather all the components that go with that faction. You got your figures, your different tokens, order tokens, base tokens, worker tokens, transport tokens, module tokens, building tokens, faction sheet, technology deck, and combat deck. So I'm setting up for 3-player game here. 1 of each race. So here I've got the Protoss, they've got all their components. Here I've got the Zerg, they've got all their components. And here I've got the Terrans and all of their components. Then you set up the Conquest track and put a Conquest marker for each faction on the 0 space of the Conquest Point track. These depletion tokens, which you just set to the side of the board somewhere near all the players. Then you separate your event cards into stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. Then depending on the number of players, you'll remove some cards. With 3 players, which is what I'm playing, you'll remove 15 cards from the stage 1, 15 cards from the stage 2. Then you'll shuffle each deck and make a stack with stage 1 on top, stage 2 in the middle, and stage 3 in the bottom. So let me go ahead and take care of that. Next, starting with the first player, each player will draw 2 planet tokens. So I've got 3 players, so let's do like that. And then they reveal them. So this is player 1, player 2, and player 3, and you see what planets you got, and then you take the actual planet tile that matches what planet you drew. So player 1 drew Pridewater and Antigua Prime, so he'll find those planet tiles. Alright, there's Pridewater and Antigua Prime. Alright, so I'll do that for each player and get them their 2 actual planet tiles. Return the planet tokens and any unused planets to the box. Okay, then starting with the first player, he'll choose one of his planets and place it down on the board, and then he can choose to put one of his bases on that planet. If he doesn't put it on that planet, then when he places his next planet, he'll have to place it on that planet. So we'll just say, and the icons on this planet, I'll just explain real quick. This is Conquest Point. So if you have a unit or base on that, every round you'll get a Conquest Point. This will give you crystals to mine, and this gives you gas to mine. And then these icons state the number of units you can have in that area. So the planet's broken up into 3 areas, so you could have 4 units here, 3 units here, or 3 units here. So we'll just say the Terran player, who's the first player, is going to choose Pride Water, and you can put it in any orientation you want. And so we'll say he's going to put it like that, and he is going to put a base on it, and he'll put it right there. So then the next player, which in my case is the Terran player, he chooses one of his planets. He has Abaddon or Victor 5, and he has to place one adjacent to this planet so that it can be connected with one of these, and he can put it in any orientation he likes. So we'll say he's going to choose to put it like this. Let me snap it together real quick. And then he can choose whether he wants to put a base on this planet or wait and put it on his second planet. But he decides that, he kind of likes that 2 Conquest Point place, so he's going to put a base on this planet. So then we go to the third player, the Protoss player, and he chooses one of his. He's got Beccaro and Helios. So we'll say he's going to choose Beccaro and put it here. Let me snap that together. Now, just for demonstration's sake, we'll say he chooses not to go ahead and put his base on that planet. He's going to put it on his second planet. Now, everybody still has 1 planet left to place, and you start with the third player, the last person to place. So now he gets to choose where he wants to place his second planet. And remember, this is where his base will have to go since he didn't put it on the first planet. So now he can put it connected here, or connected here, or here, or here. So I'm going to say he wants to kind of get away. Oops. He's going to put it up here. So let me get that connected up. Got that connected, and now he's got to place his base on here since he didn't place it on the other one. So he'll put his base right there. So now we'll go back to the second player, the Zerg player, and he's got to place his second planet. And he could place it in any of these open locations. But of course, because of table space, I'm not going to place it there or up at the top there. So let's see where he wants to put it. We'll just say he's going to go up here. So let me get that connected up. So he's got that set up. Now the first player has his one last planet to connect, and he thinks he's going to stick down here, kind of by his other planet. He thinks that's kind of safe. So let me connect that up. Okay, so the first player set his last planet here, and since he had already placed his base on his first planet, he doesn't need to put a base. So now we have everybody's got their planet placed and their initial base placed. Now, starting with the first player, each player is going to take one of these Z-axis navigation routes, and they're going to stick one end of it at a connector on one planet, and the other at the connection of any available space on another planet, which is supposed to represent the vertical, says the vertical proximity of planets, but basically it will make those planets adjacent. So we'll just say if player 1, he's going to put his z-axis navigation route like this. So now since player 1 placed this navigation route here and here, it basically makes Abaddon and Antigua Prime as if they were adjacent, so a player could move from this planet to this planet if he had a transport here. So now each other player gets to do that. So we'll say second player, he's going to put one in here. And he'll put the other end here. Well, it's not too, because these are already adjacent, so there's not really a whole lot of point to that. But as long as you don't put them on the same planet, it's valid, so he's going to do that. And then, of course, we'll say 3, he's going to put this one here. And he'll put the other end of it down here. Alright, so we've got those all placed. Then each player will take the resource cards that match the areas of the planet in which they put the base. So here the Terran player looks for the resources cards for Pride Water. Oops. And lays them down in his player area with the non-yellow side up. This is the partially depleted side. So you see they match the areas on the board. This one, has 1 resource. This one has 3. And this one has 2 gas, which is where his base is. So he takes the 3 resource cards for the planet he put his base. So each player will do that. So let me get that done. Now you see the second player, the Zerg player, he may have made a bad choice here because he took this planet because it had 2 conquest points on it, but it's only got 1 gas resource. So he may have been better off choosing the other planet he chose. But anyway, I'm kind of just showing how it works. But yeah, that would probably have been a bad starting setup choice. And finally, the third player, the Protoss player, chose Helios as his starting planet. So he takes the 2 resource cards for Helios and puts them in his play area. And finally, each player will look at the back of his faction sheet and find his starting forces and place those on his planet. Well, he'll put his forces on his planet, place the transport on one of the navigation links or navigation routes, and then put his workers in his worker pool, which I'll show you that now. So the Jim Raynor Terran player, he starts with 2 Marines, 1 Firebat, 1 Vulture, 8 workers, and 1 transport. So he's got to put those on his home planet. He can put them in any areas of his home planet as long as he doesn't exceed the unit limit as defined by these icons here, which he won't. So we'll say he's going to put a Marine, 2 Marines there. I'll put a Firebat there and a Vulture there. And he can put his transport on one of the navigation routes, so he can put it here between these planets or here between these planets. And basically what that allows is it allows you to move between those planets if you have a transport on the navigation route. So he's not looking to go attack the Zerg over here anytime soon, so he might want to claim this planet. So he's going to put his transport on that navigation route, and then his 8 workers go into his worker pool on his faction sheet, and he's set up. So let me do the same for the starting forces of the Overmind and Aldaris. Okay, for the Overmind Zerg player, he got 4 Zerglings, a Hydralisk. He got 8 workers and 1 transport which he has to place. And he's going to put it to go this way. Okay, and the Protoss player Aldaris, he got only 7 workers, which is 1 less than the other 2 factions got. And he got 2 Zealots, a Dragoon, and his transport, which he's placed here between Abaddon and Helios. And that is set up. Everybody's ready to go, and we're ready to start the game. Alright, so the game is played in a series of rounds that includes the planning phase, execution phase, and regrouping phase. So in the planning phase, players will take turns placing an order token on the order space of a planet, and the orders you can have are a build order, a mobilize order, or a research order. And when you place an order, you'll place it face down, and you can place it on a planet where you have a base or a unit, or a planet adjacent to where you have a base or a unit. So after the first player places his order on one of the planets, then the next player in clockwise order, so actually the way I'm set up here, would come around to Protoss player, then he would place one of his orders on a planet, again, where he has a base or adjacent to. Then he'd come to the next player, which in this case would be the Overmind, the Zerg player, and you go around until each player has placed 4 orders. Now it can be that a player will, place an order down here, and then another player will come along and he'll place an order on top of that, and this is called your order stack. And that's legal, and when you execute the orders, which is the next phase, you execute them in order from top down, so you can kind of block a player from doing what he wanted, or you need to take into account when you're placing the orders that they're going to be resolved from the top down. So that brings us to the next phase, as I was talking about. In the planning phase, you go around placing your orders till each player's placed 4. Then you get to the execution phase, where you start executing the orders. So starting with the first player, he'll pick one of his available orders and flip it over and execute that order. So what do the different orders do? Well, a build order will let you build units, workers, transports. Then after you've done that, you can build buildings, support modules, upgrades. And after you've done that, then you can build a base on a planet where you have a unit. But in order to build, you use resources, and that's where your resource cards come in, and you get those from planets and areas you control on a planet. So if you wanted to build something, each race starts out with one building already built. So Jim Raynor here of the Terran faction. He has a barracks, and the only unit he can build at the beginning of the game is a Marine. And you can see that costs 1 crystal. I keep saying crystals. I think they're just called minerals. So you have minerals and gas as your resources. So if the Terran player wanted to build this Marine, he would take one of his workers and place it on one of his resources. This area provides 1 mineral resource, this one provides 3, this one provides 2 gas resources. And then each faction on their faction sheet also has some permanent resources. So this one, they provide 4 minerals and 2 gas. Whether you've got a planet or not, you've always got those. So say I wanted to build a Marine, I would take one of my workers from my worker pool, put it on that resource card. Now I've mined that resource, it's not available anymore, and that worker is used, he's not available. But then I've built a Marine, and I would get it out of my pool of Marines and put it in an area on the planet where I have a base. You can only build units and workers and transports and that kind of thing where you have a base. You can see you're limited in what you can build, not only by your resources, by your amount of workers. And as you add more buildings, upgrade and add buildings, you can build different types of units, which you can see cost more, like this unit here, which is a siege tank. Once I'm able to build that, costs 2 minerals and 2 gas. And each one, so if I wanted to get 2 minerals, that would cost 2 workers, leave 1 mineral available there, and then 2 gas. And so you could see I would be down to 3 workers. So you're kind of limited not only by the resources but by your workers. Now, for 1 mineral, you can build an additional worker, and you take that and just add it to your unavailable workers, and then at the end of the round you can move it into your worker pool. And you can build additional transports, which you can put on the navigation routes. And we'll see more of how the build order works when we actually do a sample turn. But let's look at some of the other orders. The research order, which is this icon. If you resolve a research order, the first thing you do is draw an event card off the event card deck. And whenever you draw an event card, you don't look at it. You just take it face down and put it in your play area somewhere. You'll look at those later at in the regrouping phase near the end of the round. So whenever you draw an event card, you don't look at it. But when you do the research order, first thing you do is draw an event order, and then you draw 3 combat cards. Now, one thing I forgot to mention during setup is each player draws a hand of 6 combat cards into their hand. Of course, I've got them face up, but if you were playing, in an opposed game, you would keep them in your hand, not visible to the other players. But the Terran player, if you're a Terran player, either one of the factions of the Terran race, you get to draw 8 combat cards in your hand. So, again, when you draw a research, you draw an event card, and then you can draw 3 combat cards into your hand. And the hand limit is not checked at this time, so you can have more than your starting hand limit. And then after you've done that, you can purchase cards from your technology deck, which they have the same back as the combat cards, as you can see, but they're placed here. Your technology deck, you can tell the difference because they have this little technology symbol here, and their cost is on the bottom. So the cost of this technology stim packs is 1 mineral and 1 gas. And when you buy one, these little dots show the number of cards that come with that technology. So there's 2 stim packs. you only pay the cost, the one cost of one mineral and one gas, but you get both these stim pack cards and then shuffle them into your combat deck. And they give you bonuses in combat. So there's different technologies. So that's the other thing you do with the if you execute a research order. And then finally you have the Mobilize Order. Now with the Mobilize Order, if I played it here and resolved it, then you can just move units around on that planet. But because you can play Mobilize orders or any order on a planet adjacent to where you have a base or units, I could have played that here, and that allows you to move any units from this planet to any area on this planet as long as you have a transport token in between. So if I played a Mobilize order here, I would be able to move units from here to any area here. However, if I had played this Mobilize order over on this planet, I wouldn't be able to execute it because I don't have a transport in this navigation route. So I would have to build another transport prior to trying to move over here and place it on this navigation route. And that brings me to another thing you can do. If you reveal an order and you can't execute it, or you don't want to execute it, instead you can just draw an event card, and again, you wouldn't look at it, you would just put it in your play area where you would look at it later during the regrouping phase. So that's a Mobilize order, and that's all the orders. You do have these, where are they? You have multiples, so you could do more than one build order, or more than one Mobilize order, more than one research order. And again, we'll see more how that works when we do a sample turn. But you do have these gold colored special orders that you can get if you build certain modules onto your base. And when you execute one of these special orders, they give you the same power as the regular order plus a bonus. For instance, the bonus, if you use the special research order, if you buy a technology, you can put one of the cards directly into your hand instead of shuffling it into your combat deck, or you can draw an event card. The special ability of the special build order is your unit limit is increased by 1, which I didn't talk about the unit limits, but at the beginning of the game, with each build order, you're limited to building 2 units. The Protoss and Terran factions can increase that by adding supply modules to their base. The Zerg works a little different. They have a power where they get they can build 2 units for every different building they have on their sheet. So they're a little different. So if you execute the special build order, you can build 1 additional unit, and for 1 unit that you build, you can get a 1 resource discount. And then finally, the special Mobilize order, if you're using it to attack, which happens if you use it to move into an area that's got enemy units, you're doing an attack, and you'll get to draw 2 additional combat cards and get a +1 attack to each of your skirmishes, which we'll talk about later in combat. Then finally, after all the orders have been executed by each player, which you do in turn order, so he would execute, player 1 would execute 1 order, player 2 would execute 1 order. Now it so happens that it's your turn to execute an order, but you can't execute one because say you had only 1 order left, but green player still had an order on top of yours. It's your turn to execute an order, and you can't execute one because it's underneath somebody else's order token. Then you draw an event card, and the same, you can't look at it, you just put it in your player area. Then once, you know, the next round that player's executed that order, maybe then the next round, then you would be able to execute your order. So now back to once all the orders have been executed, then you go to the regrouping phase, which first thing you would do is if you had enemy units had come in and had units where your base is, you lost your units there, and they had units where your base is, then your base would be destroyed. But you can build bases on other planets, so hopefully if that happens, you have another base somewhere else. If you lose a planet, then of course you lose the resource cards that go along with it. So the next thing you do is first thing in the regroup phase is destroy base and transports. Or you destroy a transport if you no longer have a base on either planet that the transport is in between. So I don't have a base here. If I lost this base, then I would lose this transport. It would be destroyed. So that's first thing in the regroup phase is destroy bases and transports. Then you lose your resource cards for any planets, areas you no longer control. Then you gain resource cards for any planets and areas you've taken over. Then you retrieve your workers from the resource cards and resource areas that you've used your workers on. You'd get them and put them back in the worker pool. And if you'd built any workers and they were here in the unavailable workers area, you move them to your worker pool. Then you gain conquest points for any areas that have a conquest symbol like this. If you have a base or a unit on that space, then you move your conquest point marker up on the conquest point track for that many. Then you check for special victory. Each faction has a special victory condition listed on their sheet. So you check if, now before special victory, first you check for normal victory. And the normal victory is if somebody gets to 15 conquest points, then they win. But if nobody got the normal victory, then you check for special victory. Now, one power here of Aldaris, of the Protoss faction, is he requires, if he's in play, he requires the other players to get 20 conquest points instead of 15. So that's a change to the normal 15-point victory condition. And if you get to 15 and go over, then you just flip your token over and say plus 15, and that's how you'd mark that you get to 20. So normally it's 15 conquest points, but if Aldaris is in play, then it's 20. Now, of course, if he's eliminated during the game, then it would go back to 15. And Aldaris still only has to get 15. Only the other players have to get 20. So if nobody's done the normal victory condition, or nobody's done their special victory condition, then you look at the event cards you've drawn for the round. And if you have more than one, then you choose one that you're going to play. Usually they give some kind of good let's just look at the top one to kind of give you an example. So this one, if you put in your play area, your combat card hand is increased by 1. In addition, you may draw 1 additional combat card each battle. So the event cards are usually a benefit to you. And so if you've drawn more than one, you look at them, choose one to play, and discard the others. And so each player that drew event cards will do that in turn order. And then you discard down to your combat card limit. So Terran factions, if they have more than 8 combat cards in their hand, they have to discard down to 6. All other players, down to 8. All other players have to discard down to 6. And then you pass the first player token to the left, clockwise, and go to the next player. So how do you win the game? Well, as I already mentioned, you can win normally victory condition of 15 conquest points or more if he's in. As I mentioned, each faction has its own special victory condition. Let's just look at his. You immediately win the game if you have a base on at least 3 different planets during the regrouping phase during stage 3 of the game. And the stages are determined by the event deck. If you remember, we had stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. So if you're in stage 3 and you meet this victory condition, then you win the game. And that's in the regrouping phase when you're checking for special victory conditions. So that's one way to win, is the special victory. The other way is the normal victory. And the last way, in the third stage of the game, there's a couple event cards that say the end draws near. If both of those come out, then the player with the most conquest points wins. Except for the Aldaris faction, their special victory condition is when 2 or more end draws near event cards are played, they immediately win the game. If you manage to eliminate the other 2 players before any of that happens, then you could win the game that way. So that's the basics of how a round works. Why don't we go through a couple of turns maybe and just kind of show you how it works, and then I'll give you my thoughts on the game. Alright, so let's go through a couple of turns maybe. So first player is the Terran Jim Raynor player here. And so he's got to decide on the order he wants to do. He wants to probably fortify his area there a little bit, so he's going to put down a build order. Of course, the other players don't know what you've put down. Now, since we're going clockwise order, it's now the Protoss faction. They're up here kind of isolated, so I don't think they're going to get attacked maybe right away, so I think maybe they're going to put a Mobilize Order. Now remember, you can do it in an area where you have a base or unit or an adjacent area. So they want to maybe mobilize over there in Abaddon. Alright, now we come back to the Overmind Zerg. And he's thinking, man, maybe I should go attack over there. Since I seem to have more forces. But maybe I better build first. So he's going to put a build order also. Alright, so now we're back over here. And I think maybe I'm going to put a Mobilize Order just in case I want to come over here. Now we come back up here to the Protoss, and they did a mobilize. Let's say they also want to do a build up in their area. Now back to the Zerg faction here, and maybe they want to try to come up here and take some of this area, so they're going to put a mobilize. Alright, back over here. Now so far everybody's put 2 orders. So I think I'm going to put and let's just say he wants to do a research order. But he doesn't want to put it on top because he would do that before his build order. But that might be good because then he'd have some more combat cards in case this guy attacks him. So yeah, he's going to go ahead and do research. Alright, and that puts us back up here with these guys. And they're going to try to thwart this guy a little bit, so they're going to put a Mobilize Order so it's on top of their order. the Zerg order. And the Zerg, maybe they want to do a research also, so they're going to put that on top of their order there. Alright, the last order for the Terrans. Let's see. Maybe they want to just mess with, kind of scare the Zerg that they're going to come attack them, so they're going to put a Mobilize Order on them. And now we come back to the Protoss. Let's just say they're going to do another build order here. Come back to the Zerg for their last order. They don't like this order being on top of theirs. But maybe they want to worry that Terrans that they're going to come and attack them, so they're going to put an order on top of their stack. So now that's 4 orders for everybody. So that ends the planning phase, and now we go to the execution phase. Alright, so first player is the Terrans, so they're going to execute one of their orders. So the ones they could do are this one or this one. So let's see, let's say they want to do this order here. So they reveal it to everybody, immobilize. And so now they could take as many units as they want from this area and move them to any areas over here. And let's just say they're going to take 1 Marine and move them there. Now they can do that because they have a transport. For instance, here right now, if this was a Mobilize Order, I couldn't move units there at this point because I have no transport there. So now I take that order. Alright, now we come to the Protoss, and they have to reveal one of their order tokens and execute it. So they reveal a build order. So what do they want to build? Well, they might need a transport, so they can go this way. So transport costs 1 mineral, so they'll use one of their workers, and they'll put it on their faction sheet resources and use 1 mineral to build a transport. And then they can immediately place it. So they're going to place it right there. Now, the only thing they can build currently is a Zealot. So maybe they want to upgrade their building. Either upgrade this building, which if they did that, then they would be able to also build some Dragoons. So to upgrade this costs 1 mineral, so I think they're going to do that. So they take a worker, put it there, then you just place this on here. Oops, well, this side up. And now he can build a Dragoon for 2 minerals and 1 gas. So he's going to do that. So he still has 2 minerals left here. So he's going to put 2 workers to get those 2 minerals and a gas here. So now he can build a Dragoon. Let me get that out of the bag. Alright, we got that. And he's going to place it on that Conquest Point, so he'll be able to get a Conquest Point. Now he could still build 1 more unit, because remember the limit is 2 currently. Or he could build a module that, like if he builds this supply module, he could then build 3 units in the future. But for right now, I think, well, he has 2 workers. Yeah, he's going to go ahead and build a Zealot, which costs 2 minerals. So he's going to take his last 2 workers, put it on this resource and build two or build one Zealot. So let me get that. Okay, so I got that Zealot, and I'm going to put him up here. And I think that's all he's going to do with his build order. Well, actually I've had to undo, because you have to build units before you can upgrade your base. Once you've done a base upgrade, you can't go back and build units after that. So we'll just say I'm going to build the one Zealot. That's before I've done the base upgrade. Then I do the base upgrade, which would let me do the Dragoon, but I can't do that now because I've gone past the build units phase. So I'll have to wait until the next turn to build the Dragoon. So I need to get those resources back: 2 minerals and 1 gas. Alright, so kind of had to redo that. I wasn't thinking through that clearly. Alright, on to the Zerg turn. Okay, well, the Zerg, the only order they have available that they can do is this one, which is a Mobilize Order, and they really can't move over there because they have no transport, so they're not going to execute this order, and instead they're going to draw an event card. Now again, they can't look at it, they're just going to put it in their area, and they'll look at that in the regroup phase. Okay, so now we're back to the Terrans. They're going to execute this order, which is a research order. So with a research order, I get to draw 1 event card. Don't look at it, just put it in my play area. 3 combat cards. Again, these would be in my hand. The other players wouldn't be able to see these. And then I can purchase a tech. So let's just say I wanted to purchase this stim pack tech. So 2 cards. You can see there's 2 stim pack cards. Costs 1 mineral and 1 gas. So I've got to take worker. I'll put there to pay my 1 mineral, and there to pay my 1 gas. And now I need to shuffle these into my combat deck. And if I had any discarded combat cards, I would go ahead and reshuffle those at this time too. But I haven't played any, so I don't have any discarded. So let me shuffle these in my deck. Okay, got those shuffled in there. And that's all I do with that order. So now we're back to the Protoss Aldaris, and he's going to execute this other build order he did. This time, since he had built this 2nd level building, he can build that Dragoon for 2 mineral and 1 gas, and he happens to have exactly 3 workers left, so I'll spend those 2 minerals and 1 gas, and he can build this Dragoon, and he'll put it up here. And I think that's all I'm going to build, because I have no more workers, so I can't really build any more buildings or do upgrades or anything like that. So that's all the Protoss is doing with that order. Okay, we're back to the Zerg and the Overmind, and they don't have any orders that they can execute. They're all buried, so they're going to draw another event card. And we come on back to the Terrans here. They'll go ahead and reveal this order, which is a Mobilize, and they're not going to execute it. Number 1, because they didn't build a transport here yet, so they couldn't mobilize over there even if they wanted to. But they're not really in a position to fight at this point anyway, so they're not going to execute that. So they're going to draw an event card from the deck, put it over here. Back to the Protoss. They're going to execute this, which is a mobilize, and they can move over there. So he's going to take this Zerg and move him to that Conquest Point. He can put this back in his play area. Back to the Zerg. Now he does have a token revealed, so he's going to use it. And it's a research order. So again, he gets to draw an event card. He's going to have quite a few to choose from. And 3 combat cards. And then he could buy a technology. Let me look through the technologies and see if there's one that he might want to buy. Alright, he's going to buy this sunken colony technology. There's 2 of them, and it costs 1 mineral. So he's going to put a worker on right there and shuffle these into his combat deck. So let me do that. Okay, I've shuffled both those cards here into my combat deck, and that's it. So now we go on to the Terran. He still has 1 order left on the board right here, which is a build order. So first thing is you got to build transports and units and such. So he's going to spend 1 mineral, which will leave him 2 left here, to build a transport and put it here. And then he's going to build, he can only build Marines, so he's going to spend 2 minerals and build 2 Marines, because he can only build 2 units at this point with a build order. So it's 2, that's going to use up all those resources, and he's going to get 2 Marines. So let me get those out and put them. Okay, there's my 2 Marines. I'm going to put them here where my base is. That's the build order I'm doing. And now I still have 3 workers left, and I have all my minerals there. So I think I'm going to buy a supply module that will let me build an extra unit. Instead of just 2, I'll be able to build 3. So the supply module costs 1. So I'll take 1 of my workers, spend a mineral there, then I get this supply module and put it here on my faction sheet. And now when I do a build order, I can build 3 units, not just 2. Alright, now we come back to the Protoss. They're going to execute their last order, which is a mobilize. So they could take a unit from up here, and they do have a transport. So they're going to, let's say they're going to take this 1 Dragoon and put it here. That's all they're going to move. They could take more, but no, let's say they're going to also take a Zealot. Okay, so that's their last order. And finally, the Zerg still has 2 orders because they weren't able to execute some earlier. So let's see, he's going to execute this one, which is a build order. And he is going to build, he can build some Zerglings. And let's just say he's going to build 1 Zergling, so he'll take 1 of his workers, put it on here, and let me get a Zergling unit out. And I can't put it here because, you know, the unit limit is 3, and I've already got 3 units there. The unit limit here is 4, so I can put that Zergling I built there. Now I could build another one because my unit limit is 2, and I still have a couple of resources here. But I think what I want to do is maybe upgrade my building here. Let me take a look. Yeah, that'll just cost me that'll cost me 1 mineral to upgrade, and then I'll be able to build hydralisks also in the future. So I'm going to do that. Pay for the 1 mineral. And then at this point I couldn't now go back and build units. Once you've gone past once you do an upgrade, then you're past the point where you can build units. And actually I should have built a transport, but I didn't. I should have built one here, but I didn't do it. Anyway, I've executed this build order. Now, it would be the Terran's turn, but he's already executed all of his 4 orders, so he doesn't have any left on the board. So he doesn't get to draw an event card now. You only get to do that when you would be able to execute an order because you had one on the board, but you just can't get to it. So same thing with the Protoss. He's used all his, so it's the Zerg's turn again, and he's got the Mobilize Order. So he could go in here and he could attack if he wanted to, or he could just move some units over there. And let's see, maybe he wants to do that. Maybe he just wants to move 2 units here. 2 units right here. Alright, so that doesn't start a battle because he didn't move him into the same area. He could have moved him here and started a battle, but he didn't. Alright, so everybody's executed all their orders. So the first part of the regrouping phase is the destroy bases and transport. So if any enemy units were in an area where an enemy base is, then that base would be destroyed. But we don't have that. And if any transport is next to a planet where you don't have a base, then that transport is destroyed. But we don't have that case anywhere. So we go on to the next step of the regroup phase. So the next phase is the lose resource cards phase. So you have to have a base where you have resource cards from, otherwise you lose them. And even if you have a base there, if enemy units are in an area on that planet, then you lose the resource card that you have a resource card for, then you lose those. But we don't have that case anywhere yet. Everybody's still got their starting planet and all the areas on it, and that's the only resource cards that anybody has at this point. So nobody loses any resource cards. So the next part of the regrouping phase would be to gain resource cards. So if anybody had built a base on a planet that they'd moved units to, then they would stand to gain resource cards. But even though our players have moved on to other planets, nobody has built a base. So nobody will gain any resource cards in this step. Okay, the next step in the regrouping phase is to retrieve workers. So you just get all the workers off of your cards that you've put out. So I'm going to do that for everybody and I'll come back. Okay, got everybody's workers back in their worker pool. So now we go on to the next step of the regrouping phase. So the next step is to gain conquest points. So we'll start with the Jim Raynor Terran player. He gets 1 conquest point because he controls that area. Doesn't have any on this planet, so he just gets 1 conquest point. We go on to the Protoss player. He controls this, so that's 1 and 1, so he gets 2 conquest points. So we'll move his marker up to the 2. And finally the Zerg player, he's got a base here that's worth 2 conquest points, and there's no thing there, so he just gets 2 also. So we're done with that step. Alright, the next step is check for normal victory, which would be 20 conquest points for the Terran and Zerg player because of his special ability, and 15 conquest points for him. So nobody has reached the normal victory condition. Then you check for special victory conditions, which each one has their own. I can just tell you nobody's met their special victory condition. So we're done with that step. To the play event card step. So that's starting with the first player. Let's look at what he got. Place in your area. Discard at the start of battle. In this battle you gain 2 health in each skirmish. Or combat card limit is increased by 1. Yeah, I like that one. So place in my play area. So I'm going to keep that one. And then this one just gets discarded. Now the Protoss player, he didn't get any event cards during his execution phase. So now we go on to the Zerg player. And we see what he got. Got kind of the same as what the Terran player just had for 1 card. You got discard at the start of battle. Your opponent must play his combat cards first in battle and place them face up. Or choose either end of any Z-axis navigation route, switch its location. I think he's just going to take the same one that the Terran player did, which was, it was this one, the aggressive strategy. So he'll put that there. Okay, the next and final step in the regrouping phase is to discard your hand down to your hand limit, which because of this card right here, the Terran hand limit is now, instead of 8, it is 9. So let me count my cards. Okay, I had 11 in my hand, so I got to discard 2. I'll just make my discard pile down here. And let me just go ahead and do that. Remember, his hand limit was 6, but because of this, it's 7, so he's going to discard down to 7. And his hand limit is 6, so let me make sure. I don't think he got any, so that shouldn't be an issue. Okay, the Zerg had 9, so they have to discard 2. We'll just make their discard area right here. I'm kind of crowded here. And I think he just still has 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, so he doesn't have to discard any. And that's the end of first round. We'll do one more round and see if I can get in a battle and show you how that works, and then we'll wrap it up. Alright, need to pass the first player token clockwise, so that makes the Protoss first this round. So let's see what they might want to do. They got where they could get a battle right here, but let's say they want to try to do a build right there. Now the Zerg here, I think they want to initiate a battle, so they're going to put a Mobilize Order there. The Terrans are gonna put a build order right here. Okay, we're coming back over here. Let's say these guys just want to do a research order. Okay, come back to the Zerg. They probably want to do a build order to get some more forces. Alright. Come back over here to these guys. The Terrans. They probably want to do a build order. Get some forces. Alright, we're going to come back to the Protoss. They kind of want to block this guy from doing something, so they're going to put a Mobilize Order there. These guys, They're thinking, well, shoot, let's go ahead and do a research. And the Earth forces, well, they got 2 build orders out. They want to mess with the Zerg, so they're going to put something on top of their order stack. And we come back with the Protoss going to put their last order. They're going to do a build order over here. Alright, the Zerg for their last order. They want to make sure that they can get over here and do a battle, so they're going to put Mobilize Order. And the Earth folks for their last order, or not the Earth folks, the Earth folks, the Terrans. They're probably going to do a research order right here. Alright, I think that is 4 orders for everybody. So now we go on to the execution phase. That starts back with the first player, which is the Protoss Aldaris. And they are going to execute this order, which is a build order. And what do they want to do? Well, they probably want to build a Zealot, which costs 2 crystals, so they'll put 2 workers up there. Let me get it. Alright, and they're going to put him there. And they may want to build another Dragoon. So yeah, let's have them do that. So we know that costs 2 minerals and a gas. So there's the 1 gas, and here's a mineral and a mineral. And I'll put that Dragoon right there. Alright. Now we come to the Zerg Overmind, and they're going to execute this order. Mobilize. And so when you do a mobilize order, you can do 2 things. You can move units on the active planet, which is the one where the order is. So they're going to move these guys here. But then you can also move units from an adjacent planet. So they're going to move a couple of Zerglings. Remember, they can do it because they have a transport. And they're going to move them here also. So now that's going to cause us our first combat. So we'll see how that works. So first, you put your order token in the contested area because you're going to end up moving these forces off, and that reminds you what the contested order is. So that's his mobilize order. Then you do any start of battle abilities, and he has this: draw 1 additional combat card each time you do a battle. So you can do that, I guess, now or when you draw your combat cards, which is next. So next, the attacker gets to draw 3 combat cards, and since the Zerg's the attacker, he's going to draw 3. And then the defender normally gets to draw 1, but the Protoss has this special ability: draw 2 additional combat cards during draw combat card step of each battle in which you are the defender. And they are the defender, so they will, instead of just drawing 1, they get to draw 3 combat cards. So the next step is the attacker establishes skirmishes. Now, you can just do that on the table. I printed this off of the files section of BGG. But what happens is the attacker has to establish skirmishes So he has to use the defender's units, and then since he has more units than the defender, he's got to decide which his frontline units are going to be. And then he has units, since he's got more than the defender, he's got some that can be supporting units. If the defender had 4 units, then we'd have 4 frontline units against 4 frontline units. But since the defender only had the 2, we set it up this way, with the defender having 2 frontline units, the attacker having 2 frontline units, and then they had 2 supporting units. So now the attacker has to choose his combat cards, and you have to do 1 combat card for each skirmish. So let's look at the combat cards. This is your attack, and this is your defense. Now, if your image of the unit that's your frontline unit is on the card, then you get the larger number. And if the image on the card is not your frontline unit, then you get the smaller number. And also, if the image on the card is your frontline unit, then you can get whatever the special ability that may or may not be here. So my frontline units in this skirmish are a Hydralisk here for the Zerg, and some Zerglings. So let's see what cards I have. So this is not Zergling, so I could use that one. Now you see I skipped by this one, because even though this is a Zergling, it's only got a 4. And I don't know if I mentioned this, if your unit doesn't match, you get the smaller numbers. But this one with the Zergling has an attack of 6, so I would rather have that card for my Zergling unit. That one has attack of 5. Now this is a support card, and I'll get to that in a minute. Let me set that aside. Okay, here's one with a Hydralisk, which is one of my frontline units, which gives an attack of 5. Let's see if there's something better. This plus means not a support, reinforcement. So let me set that aside, and I'll come back to that. Alright, this one's a Hydralisk with an attack of 7. That's better than this one that only had 5. So I think these are the 2 we're going to use right here. Okay, so you put face down which card you're using with which skirmish. Oops. So I want to use this card with this skirmish, and this card with this skirmish, because it's got the Hydralisk. Then if you have a reinforcement card, that has this plus, and it matches your frontline unit, then you can use that also. This says any, so that will match, any frontline unit. And it says gain +1 attack if you have at least 1 supporting unit in this skirmish. Well, I do have supporting units, so I'm going to use that reinforcement card there, and this one is the same, so I'm going to use that reinforcement card there. Okay, so now the defender will choose theirs, and I'm going to go ahead. I'll do that off camera, but I'll show you the cards I chose. Okay, since one of my frontline units is a Dragoon, I'm going to play this card, which gives me an attack of 8. So I'll put that behind that skirmish. My other one is a Zealot, so I'm going to play this one, which gives me an attack of 6. And it has and I didn't draw any reinforcement cards into my hand, so I'm not able to put any. Now, one thing I didn't mention is your units, must be able to, in order to damage the opposing unit, they must be able to attack them. So if I had a flying unit here, then the opposing units must be able to attack flying units, or if I had a flying unit and it was only able to attack other flying units, then it wouldn't be able to attack the Zerglings because they're ground units. So the units have to be able to attack each other, and you can kind of tell if you got what they can attack and what they are. Well, this is the Terrans. Let me show. So this is the Zergs. So if the unit has this like rocky ground background, then it's a ground unit. And this icon means it can attack ground units. This icon here means the Hydralisk can attack ground and air units. So this icon means you can attack air units. If the icon has this starry background, then that means it's an air unit. So if you were trying to attack it with something that can only attack ground units, then it wouldn't really do any damage to this unit. So in the case we have of this battle, everything's a ground unit, and they're all able to attack each other. So let's go on to the resolving the skirmishes. Now, I don't know if I specified this, but the attacker sets up the skirmishes, so he determines which unit is going against which unit. The defender doesn't get to decide that. The only thing the defender gets to decide is what combat cards he's going to use. So once the skirmishes are all set up and the cards are set up, then you reveal the cards, and the attacker resolves the skirmishes in whatever order he wants to do. So let's just do this one here first. So you reveal the cards, and your opponent can verify that you do have the unit that matches your frontline unit. So in this case, we do have a Zergling, so it's going to do an attack of 6, plus it gains +1 attack if you have at least one supporting unit, which I do. So that's going to be attack of 7, plus the supporting unit, which if you look down here at Zergling, if they're a supporting unit, they get +1. So we have an attack of 6, +1 for the supporting unit, +1 here. So we're doing an attack of 8. The defense of the Dragoon, because it matched the card, is a 7. But the Zerg's got an 8, so he's destroyed. But they did do an 8 attack against a defense of only 3. So this Zergling and this Dragoon are both eliminated. And let me discard these cards. So now we resolve the next one, which is the Hydralisk and a Zergling. Alright, so it's a Zealot. He got nothing special here. He has an attack of 6 against a defense of 6. Because the Hydralisk does match this, so they both use the larger numbers. Again, if you don't match the picture, you use the smaller number. So if your attack equals or is greater than your defense, then the unit is destroyed. So the Hydralisk will be killed. But their attack is 7, +1 for the Zergling's support, +1 for the card. So 9 against a defense of 7. So both of these units are destroyed. So that leaves these two supporting Zergling units alive, and so they'll go back in where the battle took place, and that ends the combat. Now there's other effects that can take place from other combat cards. You got splash damage, which can do damage to units, even after all the skirmishes are resolved. If you have something that does splash damage, then it may still damage units that are left. And there's cloaking and some other things. I'm not going to go through all that right now. I just wanted to give an example of a simple combat, which is what I've done right there. It's a little convoluted in my opinion. It's okay, but I think it probably could be streamlined a little bit. But anyway, that's a basic example of it. So that was the Zerg. They did that Mobilize Order, so now we're back to the Terrans. They can do this order, which I dropped, which is a research order. We'll just say he decides, I don't want to do that. I'm going to draw an event card. So he takes that, puts it in his play area. Now we go back to the Protoss. This should have been here, but I guess it fell off. He's going to do a build order. So he's not going to build any units because he doesn't have a base there, and he doesn't have any building to upgrade there. So because he does have a unit there, he can build a base. So, and you can see here, a base costs 2 crystals, or minerals, and he has 2 workers left. And he's got 2 left over here on his faction sheet. So he's going to build a base right here. That's what he does with his build order. And then that's all he can do, because that's the last thing. First thing you can do is build units, workers, transports. Then after you've completed that, then you can do upgrades, modules, that kind of thing. And once you've completed that, the last thing you could do is build a base. So he's done that. So now we're back to the Zerg. He doesn't have an order he can do. He's got one buried there. So he's going to draw an event card, put it in his play area. Back to the Terrans. Let's see, they'll do this order, a build order, and he's going to do the same thing. He's going to build a base. So again, 2 minerals. So he hasn't used anything yet, so he'll put 2 workers there. He'll build a base here. Go back to the Protoss. Let's just say he's got this order, which was a Mobilize. So he could come with those forces he has there and attack the Zergs here again, do another battle and probably win. But I've showed how a battle works. I don't want to go through that again. So he'll just say he's not going to execute that, and he's going to draw an event card instead. He'll put that in his play area. We'll come back to the Zerg. Now he's going to play this. He's got a Mobilize Order, so he could move some more of these units up, but he's not going to do it. He's just going to draw an event card. Oops, he wasn't supposed to look at it. He puts it in his play area. We come back to the last order for the Terrans. They've got a build order. We'll say he's not going to build any units at this time. He's just going to, he'll build another building. So just because we haven't done that, so I want to give an example of that. So he could build a level 1, cost 2 minerals, and then he just puts it right there. So let's pay the 2. I still have 1 left here I can spend, so that's 3 now, and then 1 here. And then this will now allow him on a future build order to build a vulture. And if you upgrade that, then then you'll be able to build this unit. Let's just give an example. So if later I went ahead and upgraded this building by paying another mineral and a gas, then I can upgrade this, and then I'll be able to build a vulture and a fire bat. And if I eventually upgrade that again, then I can build vulture, a fire bat, and a siege tank, and that would be on there. And of course you can see the costs of them, but we'll just say I built that, and that's all I'm going to do. Come back. Protoss still has 1 up here. Research. He doesn't want to do that. I mean, I've showed a research, so he doesn't want to do it. He just wants to draw an event card. And I think that is everybody's orders. So now we go to the regrouping phase. So we would destroy bases. If the Zergs had come here and took over this spot, and they had units where his base was, then his base would be destroyed at that time. But that didn't happen. But then you go to the lose resource card. So if this guy had lost his base here, then he would lose the resource cards he has for this planet at that point. Then you go to the gain resource cards, and so if the Zergs build a base on this planet, like on the next turn, then in the gain resource cards phase, they would gain the cards that would have the resources for this planet. So they would get 3 resource cards for Bekar Row. But anyway, that's kind of how that works. Then we go to the retrieve workers phase. So, everybody just gets their workers back into their worker pool. Each player would do that. Then we go to the gain conquest points phase. So, the Terrans got 1 conquest point, so they would go there. 1, 2 again for the Protoss, and 2 there because that has a 2 on it for the Zerg. Then you check for normal victory. Of course, nobody's got that. Then you check the special victory conditions, and nobody's got that. Then you look at your event cards and see if you want to play that. So this one, if I played this, then I got to replace the one I have. But if I don't want to do it, then I can just discard it. So then we come to the Protoss. Well, actually, the Protoss player should have gone first because he's first player, but he would choose one of these. Choose 1 resource providing area if the resource is partially depleted. I should talk about the depleted resources. But anyway, he would choose one of these, play that, and discard the other one. And same with... but let me talk about, since I hadn't talked about depleted resources. So when you're using a resource card to get resources, like this one only has 1. Well, you can, if I had another worker, I could mine that again to get 1 additional resource from it instead of just the 1. But that partially depletes it. So then you'd flip it over to this area where it's got the X, and you'd put one of these depletion tokens with the yellow side up on it, on that area in Helios. Then that's called force mining. Then if you ever force mine that again, like I wanted to get another resource from it, so I mined it again, well, then it's depleted. So then you put one of these tokens with the red X on that area and just discard the card, and you can no longer get resources from that area. So a reason you may want to do that is if you're about to lose you're going to get an area you've got is going to get invaded and you're not going to be able to stop it. You may want to force mine it a couple of times to get those resources and then make that area depleted so the enemy that takes it over gets no benefit from it. But that's what a depleted area is, and that's one of the things I had forgot to mention. Anyway, then after we played event cards, we discard combat cards, pass the first player token, and that's how it goes, round and round, until somebody either meets their standard victory condition with conquest points, or if somebody meets their special victory condition, or if finally you get to the end draws, 2 of the end draws near cards. Anyway, they're in here. Then that'll end the game also. And actually, with the Aldaris faction, as soon as, I think I already mentioned this, if 2 end draws near cards come out, they win immediately. So that's how it goes. That's StarCraft, the board game. I liked it pretty well. I mean, again, playing solo, you can't get the full experience out of it. I did think that the combat is a bit time-consuming, a bit convoluted. It's not terrible. I've seen worse, but it just takes a lot of time to go through that and set up. I hate any time you got to take pieces off the board and arrange them. That just takes a lot of time that I don't think is necessary. I think you should never have to take the pieces off the board and arrange them in a certain order and all that to do combat. At least I don't care for that. Some people might, but I mean it's not terrible, and I think the game definitely would be enjoyable multiplayer. I know this was rethemed and reprinted in a game called Forbidden Stars with the Warhammer theme. And I actually own that and played it several years ago, but I can't remember. Uh, I don't remember having to take figures off the board to do combat, so I think they maybe improved the combat in that. I don't really remember a whole lot about it other than the order system was similar to this, where you placed order tokens in the areas on your space map and executed them in order like that. So I know that was similar for sure, but I can't remember how the combat worked in that. May have to do a playthrough of that in the future. Other than that, I liked it. The rules, it's one of those really thick, long rule books, 44 pages. And, I mean, it wasn't bad, but I had to go back and look things up several times to figure out, exactly how everything worked and how combat, there's so many ifs, ands, or buts and stuff like that. But overall, I enjoyed it. I think it would be fun playing with other players, and I do plan, hopefully, sometime in the future when COVID is over, to get the group I play with to play this, and I think we'll enjoy it. Anyway, I hope I gave you a fairly good idea of how this game plays. I mean, it's been out of print forever. I think it was printed in 2007. So, if you were looking for a copy, you'd have to find a used copy. I know there's an expansion called Brood War or something, but every time I look for that, it's really expensive. So I'll probably not ever get it unless someone offers it in a trade or something. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.